Gather round, children, and Granny will tell you a story. Warm yourself by the fire before we travel together to Angkor, the city of temples in Cambodia. For almost 1,000 years, Angkor was a metropolis of advanced civilization and was once the largest empire on Earth. People and gods lived comfortably together in the densely populated series of cities and temples. Every soul who walked these stones left behind a story, a shimmering thread in the tapestry of time. Let us take hold of one of these threads and follow it back into the mists to the year 1125. This thread belongs to a young woman, a master weaver named Soriya. Soriya stood small among the towering stones of Angkor, but those who knew her never mistook her stature for weakness. She was born into formidable intellectual power, her father an academic, her mother the engineer who designed the very aqueducts that fed the kingdom, a woman who understood weight, balance, and the hidden architecture of things. Soriya too understood hidden structures, not of stone and water, but of silk and story. From childhood she had fallen in love with the loom. Under her calloused fingers, threads didn't just lie flat, they breathed. They became storm clouds heavy with rain, the subtle curve of a smile, the sorrow in the slope of a shoulder. Her tapestries were so vivid that King Suryavarman II himself once reached out, half expecting his fingers to meet not woven silk, but the bark of a tree or the coolness of river water. Yet for all the grandeur she could conjure from her loom, her most profound creation was not something meant for palaces. It was something far quieter and far more fragile. The love she built, thread by patient thread, with Virak, the quiet guard who stood watch each evening at the moon pavilion, and whose steady presence became the warp to her weft. The first time Virak saw Soriya, she was laughing. Not the polite laughter of court ladies, but full-bellied joy that startled birds from the temple eaves. She was chasing a runaway skein of indigo silk across the courtyard, her hair tumbling wildly from its intricate ties. Virak stood at his post, stiff in his new armor, when this whirlwind of a woman nearly collided with him. "Move, you great statue," she'd gasped, then blinked up at him with eyes like dark river stones. When Virak wordlessly fished the silk from where it had caught on his ankle, her frown melted into something warmer. "Ah, you're one of those quiet ones." After that, she came each day at dusk. She loved to talk, and Virak loved to listen to her. Everything she said made him smile, even when she was just grumbling about noblewomen who demanded more gold thread, as if the sun itself could be spun. No one but Soriya had ever asked him what he thought or felt before, and his answers were hesitant, like a baby taking its first steps. Soriya was charmed by his determination to tell her anything she wanted to know, even when one of his stories ended with him falling into a latrine. Virak brought her palm leaf poems and temple flowers that crumbled within minutes, until Soriya taught him to weave the blossoms into her hair. "You're terrible at this," she said, as his clumsy fingers tangled jasmine stems. But she wore his lopsided garland all evening, even when the court ladies gently teased the master weaver for wearing such poorly woven blooms. She stayed up late for weeks to weave him a sash of midnight blue silk. "So this is why you were so tired all the time," he breathed in wonder, hardly daring to touch it. The sash was stitched with prayers so fine and delicate only monks could read them. They planned to marry, and their pure happiness glowed bright. Then came the war. In the year 1128, King Suryavarman II was not content. The king, ambitious and warlike, had expanded the empire's reach to a size that would not be seen again until the rise of the Roman Empire. But it was still not enough. Now he also wanted Dai Viet, modern-day Vietnam. As war drums echoed beyond the Mekong, Virak and 20,000 other soldiers were summoned to march through the Eastern Gate and into battle. He pressed their joined hands to the sash she'd made him, its hidden stitches spelling "Come home." Neither spoke of the single strand of silver thread she'd woven through it, the one that glowed faintly in moonlight, like a path through the darkness, like a prayer. "Wait for me at the Tree of Shadows," he whispered, kissing the palm of her hand, "no matter how long." Soriya waited, and while she waited, she wove. Her tapestry began with joyful memories, their first kiss by the lotus pool, Virak's laughter as he taught her to spar with a soldier's dagger. But as the war dragged on, her threads darkened. She wove scenes she'd never witnessed. Elephants floundering in mud turned crimson with blood. A soldier laying down his weapon to gather his dead brother in his arms. Virak's poor broken body drifting on the waters of the Khmer River. The single silver thread of his sash now a violent red. She wove until her fingers bled as crimson as Angkor Wat's towers at sunrise. But still, she waited. Soriya couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and it was all that her terrified family could do to convince her to take small sips of water to replace her never-ending tears. The monks found her one sad, still dawn. She was slumped over her loom, a needle still clasped in her stiff fingers, her unblinking eyes fixed on the eastern path. Her unfinished tapestry bore a final panel, a woman's shadow stitched to Tarprom's walls, its mouth open in an eternal scream of despair. They buried her beneath the Tree of Shadows and adorned her grave with jasmine. But at midnight, the temple dogs howled as her spirit rose, trailing threads from her burial shroud. And even now, her loom clicks in the ruins, weaving futures no mortal should see. From the unpublished memoirs of Claude Renoir, discovered in his Paris flat after his death in 1937. April 15th, 1925, Bayon Temple, Cambodia. The morning had begun like any other archaeological survey. I was documenting the famous stone faces of Bayon when movement caught my eye. A woman knelt in the shadow of a collapsed gallery, her hands moving in that distinctive rhythmic motion of a weaver at her loom. Yet there was no loom. "Madame?" I called out in French, then Khmer. She gave no indication of hearing me. My camera's flash illuminated the scene for but a moment. When I developed the plate later, it showed only silken threads hanging impossibly in mid-air, forming what appeared to be the beginnings of a complex pattern. That night, I awoke to a terrible sensation. An invisible force pulling insistently at my wrist, tugging me eastward toward something. It was as if I was being impelled to search for something. Rising from my bed in a half-daze, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Strangely, I appeared to be wearing a dark-coloured sash, despite owning nothing of that description. He fled Cambodia at dawn, leaving all his film behind. His developed photographs were later found to contain faint images of a loom that wasn't present when the shots were taken. In his final journal entry before his death, Renoir wrote, "Even now, sometimes at dawn, I feel that same insistent pull at my wrist. When I look in the mirror on those mornings, I swear I can see the faintest shimmer of midnight blue at my waist. On the morning of the 14th of March, 1972, 6-year-old Males Channery disappeared among the crumbling galleries of Bantier Quay. She was chasing something, her father told investigators, his voice breaking. She called over her shoulder to her mother about the pretty lady with the shiny strings. The search party found Males at twilight, sitting cross-legged beneath a massive stone loom that appeared on no temple schematics. In her small hands lay a grotesque creation, a doll with Males's own dark hair stitched into its scalp, its torso wrapped in ancient cloth of midnight blue. Most chilling was the child's whispered explanation. Auntie Soriya needs help waiting for Uncle Virak. She says I have clever fingers. The stone loom vanished overnight, leaving no trace in official records. Males developed an uncanny skill for weaving, though she says she remembers nothing of that day. Now in her 50s, Males runs a successful silk workshop in Phnom Penh. Visitors remark that her dolls have an unsettling realism to them. When asked about her childhood experience, she simply smiles. The original police report remains classified, though rumours persist about a single photograph showing Males holding hands with a shadowy figure whose fingers ended in needle-sharp points. 2019. "All right, Danger Squad, let's do this," Max Holloway said, his torchlight dancing across the ancient routes of Tar Prom. The brash Australian vlogger had built his channel on trespassing in abandoned asylums and haunted castles, but tonight's target was different. Cambodia's jungle-clad temples promised his biggest stunt yet. "Local guides reckon this bit of cloth's part of some cursed weaver's tapestry," he said, fingers closing around a fragment of rotting fabric entwined in the roots. His 8,742 live viewers watched as he pulled hard, and the screen fractured into digital snow. When the feed cleared, the chat exploded. "Mate, your face is in the tapestry. Max, blink twice if you're in trouble." But Max wasn't laughing. Authorities found his equipment at dawn, his camera capturing 47 identical frames of a needle-piercing cloth. Forensic tests showed human hair in the tapestry threads, an exact match for Max's bleached tips. Cambodian immigration confirmed his passport never left the country. Regulars at X-Bar on Siem Reap's pub street now swap stories of spotting Max in tourist photos, always near those same routes, always slightly blurred, as if he is made of thread. So, good children, learn well. If you walk the hallowed grounds of Angkor, tread lightly. Do not disturb the eternal watch of Soriya. And if you should ever find threads of midnight blue in the waters of the Khmer River, bring them home to her. Sleep well, and check your window.